On this day, back home, we would remember a local saint, John Jones, from Clynnog Fawr. He went to the continent, was ordained a priest, and as a priest entered the Franciscan order at Pontoise in France. He was professed at the Church of the Araceli in Rome and sent back on the English mission. He worked with the Jesuit underground in close collaboration with the famous Henry Garnet, director of these secret operations. He was arrested in 1597 and kept in prison for a year while they collected the evidence. Eventually, on this day, he was hanged, drawn and quartered at St. Thomas Waterings on the old Kent Road in Southwark. In fact, recently I was there. My friend, who was ordained recently as a Premonstratensian, a Welsh-speaking friend, pointed out the place. During an hour's delay on the scaffold, because the executioner had forgotten his rope, Jones asserted that he had never entertained even the thought of treason. Of course, he was being hanged, drawn and quartered for high treason, but these martyrs were trying to point out that they were loyal subjects. They wanted to die for the right reason, if they were dying at all. He eventually was condemned on the accusation of being one of these priests who had been ordained on the continent and returned on the mission to England. But he himself, on his own admission, was executed as a priest precisely, which is what he wished. No complication of the issue. And he was canonized by Paul VI. I remember the occasion, the 25th of October, 1970. He was one of the 40 martyrs, as was St. John Roberts, from also our area, who was actually caught at the altar in his vestments and hanged, drawn and quartered in 1610 at Tyburn. And also as was Richard Gwynn. Richard Gwynn, he was from the area where our farm would be, in Powys. He was a school teacher and so well loved that they couldn't find an executioner, and the rickety scaffold had to be prepared. And there's an interesting detail in his life. He kept his nose down and avoided things by, on one occasion, conforming. He went to the Holy Communion, and when he got out of the Anglican Church, ravens pecked at his stomach in a terribly painful way where the invalid host was, and he got the message from on high. He was not to do that again, and he didn't, and he died as a clear witness of the Catholic faith, very much loved by his people. And when they were executing him, he was being hanged, drawn and quartered. When it came to disemboweling him, he said in Welsh, "O Dduw Gwyn, pa beth ydy hyn? O white God, O blessed God, what thing is this?" And he was given the answer, this is the execution of the High King. And in fact, when St. John Roberts was being hanged, drawn and quartered, when it came to the moment of pulling out the heart, and in the ritual holding it out to the people with this, "Behold the heart of a traitor," to which they were expected to respond, "Long live the king," no one answered. He was loved also. He had helped a lot in the plague in London. St. John Jones, was from our area and Canon McNamara, our parish priest in Carnarvon, had purchased a Wesleyan church and transformed it into a Catholic church and dedicated it to St. John Roberts. And in this day it would be his feast. However, the new bishop has closed most of the small churches, and that's one that has come in for the block, so that's not happening anymore. Clynnog Fawr is interesting in itself, actually, where St. John Roberts came from. If one goes there, one can put one's finger in the stone, and it fits exactly in the thumbprint of St. Baynor, because there he made an agreement with the local landlord for that plot of land with the sign of the cross, and there it can be seen. He himself was close when his niece, Winifred, was being martyred for her chastity. He heard the cries and rushed, and although her head had fallen and the water had gushed forth, still gushing forth to this day at Holywell, he restored her to health, and she became eventually abbess at Gwytherin. But another one from Clynnog Fawr who was important in the Counter-Reformation was Maurice Clynnog, nicknamed after the place where he came from, as they often do in Wales, and he was superior of the English College in Rome, the Venerabile, still there to this day, with these pictures of the martyrs there on the landing. And remember years ago, sitting with Bishop Mullins, who had confirmed me, and I knew well, he spoke Welsh, and he was reading out to me in Welsh a conversation reported by Maurice Clynnog with Griffith Robert, who was, if I remember rightly, confessor to the Archbishop of Milan, St. Charles Borromeo. Now, these were important people of the Counter-Reformation on the continent. He wanted me to be aware of the historical nature of the resistance outside Wales. They couldn't do much in Wales. And in fact, the faith died in Wales because the priests couldn't get back. There were two enclaves. One was St. Winifred's Well there, that area, and the other was near Abergavenny, a cwm. There were Jesuits working quietly down there, and it's near where eventually the Benedictines built the present Belmont Abbey, which was included in the Archdiocese of Cardiff, even though Hereford is actually in England, so as to have a monastery in the Archdiocese. Now, these martyrs were dying for essentially the survival of the sacramental life in England and Wales. We need to be aware of that there's a profound difference between Catholicism and what was established by law. One cannot create a church and call it part of the Catholic Church. Newman, after his conversion, did see that it was only a human institution. Therefore, we need to be aware that the issue is not that of practice, whether it's good preaching or not, whether there is good witness here or there. It's the question of the divine, for the Church is more than the sum of its members. And moreover, one is very much aware that we have all history behind us in the Catholic Church. And it's something which one feels very strongly actually on the continent, especially if one is ordained there, because the Church is still there. And using the ancient chant, one feels the power of the centuries coming through. There is a power in history, and the Church is a huge living organism with a continuous, unbroken history, despite the will of man. The sound of yesterday. And when upon the night I hear the day that was not meant to be, and hear again the voice of these my brethren far away, from yesterday call forth an old refrain, wherein my voice is not, forgot can be, in near an hour to be, the power we owned, or beauty in the sky. For history did travel through our chords, and echoes found. Oh, yesterday, die quietly for aye, and call not hence a tear from ours no more within the grasp of living. Fade away e'en from the cells that hold thee, where before the memory inscribed for aeons long, the touch of man and angel in a song